Gonna have to do it the old school way.
Yep, like that. Use the old mouse. The mouse is working. So there we go. That's the first picture I picked. Obviously from this last season. Do you remember first of all, where were you set up to take this? It looks like we were shooting in the outfield.
I kind of like the story on this one too, because I was shooting the game, and usually you can I start to, and sometimes I shouldn't say not all the times, but on this particular night I had started to work myself, because I'm always moving around the field. And so I had started to work myself down the first base line to get myself closer to the exit. I was ready to go. And, and then all of a sudden, as I was working my way down the line, all of a sudden that game starts to slip away. I'm like, no way. They're not gonna. Oh crap, they're gonna. And so I was down the first base line, down by the field, and so it just happened. This one just happened to line up that way. I mean, I did see ahead of time that if Creighton pulls this off, they're going to explode from the dugout and they're going to run right at me. And it just happened to line up where pitcher's walking off and the dugout's exploding behind that. We had an interesting discussion at the magazine over this one or a couple other images that they all had different qualities, one over the other. But this one seemed to always just keep coming back to the front for that sake of that discussion.
Yeah, I love the way the depth of field looks on it. The crowd is obviously way blurred out, but you can see the joy on the Creighton players' faces, but it's not quite as distinct as the
focus is on the focus is on the pitcher, because we work for a
walk-off, right?
And we work for a Nebraska magazine, so I'm always looking at the red and white to be a focus of the picture usually.
I mean, you can even see just in the subtle top left corner, you can see the arms crossed, fans sitting in their seats. Like, it's the anticipatory feeling of defeat that every Husker fan is familiar with. Unless you're a fan of Husker volleyball, then that's less often. But yeah, you can just see arms crossed. They're just like, wow. So if you look for those little details, it's like you can see everything. You can see the synchronization of the pitcher and the fans. It's just so just.
Well, and then I know there's a pretty good story. Oh, of course it doesn't want to move the slide up. There we go. Yeah, we're gonna have to go old fashioned here. So there's the one with Lexi Rodriguez helping Kenzie Nuck. Was that the night that Kenzie got injured, or was that after she had been injured? I don't remember.
Yeah, now I'm not 100% certain. Because she got hurt early in that match.
Okay.
I think this was the night.
Okay.
But again, I'm just walking off into the tunnel to go back to our workroom to start working up photos, and I just something made me just like turn around for a second, and I see them coming at me. This is one of those instinctual things you were talking about earlier, and I literally, it happened so quick. I just grabbed the camera, pulled it up, fired off a few frames, and there it was. And then, lo and behold, as the rest of the season, transpires, we've realized that was losing Kenzie was huge. a big impact to the team.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty pivotal moment.
No doubt about it. Let's see here. There we go.
Yeah.
That's I love watching this kid play, and he obviously absolutely loves to play, right?
Right.
I mean, the joy that he exhibits in this is just beautiful. Absolutely. It's such great. Again, you probably were in the moment, or maybe were you set up waiting to see this, or was he literally pointing at you?
No, he
You
wasn't
know,
literally
taking
pointing at me. I think he was just making the finger guns because he was shooting lights out as usual.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Ah.
I
No,
apologize first and foremost to the folks who are listening to the podcast after the fact. and
Oh,
they won't
yes.
get to see these photographs. I apologize.
well, they're gonna have to go back and find it on
Go to YouTube,
on YouTube.
subscribe to Generation Red on YouTube. Shameless plug. And fast forward to about just right about 30 minutes, and you'll be able to see these photos that we're talking about. They're worth going to YouTube and checking out. So moving on. This is a photo that I picked not because it describes anything particularly dramatic. This is because Scott and I were sitting with our wives about 2 sections over to the right and about 4 rows down for this Georgia Southern game. So this was more of a
So you recognize the view.
I recognize the view. I love that is my favorite place in the whole stadium to sit, is up anywhere.
It's
And
kind
that
of my preferred go-to sunset spot now these
Yep.
days.
It's so beautiful up there.
Yeah, I mean it is.
You can pee whenever you want. You can eat whenever you want.
and there's decent bathrooms up there. That's beautiful.
Yeah, you're just a mile and a half away from the field.
Yeah, that's all. But you can see everything. That's the thing. You can see the holes open up. You can see the passes in the air. You can see it all.
True.
And in some ways, I think it's a better perspective on what's really going on the field up there than it is, say, in the end zones.
Yeah, I think I gave up almost the entire second quarter to make this picture last year. But it's worth it, and it you know, it was
perfect.
It was Georgia Southern. I mean, they're gonna win that game. At least that was my obvious thinking at the time, and they did. But so I figured it was worth to go up there and make, because we don't get the evening game at sunset with a nice sunset. Everything seemed to be lining up that night, and so I told John, I said, I'm gonna go, hang out in literally behind the last seats in the stadium.
Yeah.
To see if I can make a picture worth looking at. So
you did that. It's so beautiful up there. I especially, like you said, with the sunset going down behind West Stadium, just doesn't get much prettier. Now, if you're up there in the middle of the afternoon when the sun's starting to come down the western sky and beating directly in your face, it's not exactly.
Also, you won't find me going up there to make a picture in, say November.
No, you don't have a lens hood big enough. Oh yeah, November, no doubt.
Blistering cold.
Of course, this is from that game too, and I know you've talked about this picture, but I remember the first time I saw it as well, and then heard you talk about it. I was like, yeah, that would have been what I would have thought immediately when I saw the picture was, yep, I think he knew it was over.
Yeah, that was exactly my take from, and like I said, I'd been low-key stalking him from yards away, and I'm not the only photographer who was, I can tell you that. But I was just always one eye on the action on the field, one eye towards where's Scott, what's he doing? And when I saw this go through the camera and I saw it in the moment, I thought, okay, that's a cover candidate when the time comes, because we all knew it was coming by this point. And it wound up making the cut for the cover, but it just kind of says everything to me. It's like that was the moment he realized it's over.
Yeah, at
least that's what it feels like.
That resigned look on his face, like, I'm not pulling this out. It's not happening tonight. His players are standing quite a ways away from him. He looks kind of like a man out on an island, really. So next slide, if I can make it work. There we go. There's the one you were talking about earlier. The one where you just threw your camera up and hopefully you got it framed, even though you didn't quite get it up to your eye, right? That's there at Rutgers.
Right. And that was that, late in the game, right after a turnover. and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where most offensive coordinators after a turnover within shot of the end zone, pretty good chance they're going to take a shot because it's a good time to get to capitalize on momentum and try to take a kill shot. So, I had positioned myself in a place where, if it comes this way, I'll be in exactly the right spot. And then I see Trey line up on that side of the field. Okay, it's looking better for me. And and I see Casey just rear back and let the ball go. And I immediately took my eye out of the camera to find Trey, because it had to be Trey streaking down and lo and behold, he was running right at me. And I just grabbed the little camera around my neck and just kind of brought it up and kind of shooting from the hip, Old West style. And that's where those, the skill set combined with some instincts and, 30 years of doing it the wrong way.
Right.
Teach you how to do it the right way.
So were you able to get the living daylights out of his way by the time
I got Trey slid right to the left of me, and it was the Rutgers guy that actually kind of caught a little glancing blow. He hit it. I took his knee right in my right thigh.
Oh,
yeah. When I rolled out of bed the next day,
limping a little.
Trying to get through the airports the next day was a little bit of a chore.
Oh, I
It
imagine.
was worth getting a shot, though. Worth getting a shot.
Yeah, because at the time, we didn't know what we didn't know yet. I thought, if Coach gets this thing turned around, and this moment could have been the turning point of the season. Now it didn't play out that way, but in the moment, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Right? If he gets this turned around, this is going to be the picture of the year, because it would have been the moment that it all flipped.
Yeah.
And it almost did. Not quite, but
you take a look at the games. I threw that question there at the bottom. Without Trey Palmer, what would the Nebraska record in 2022 look like? He scored both touchdowns in the Wisconsin game, and if it weren't for a defense that couldn't figure out how to stop anybody in the fourth quarter because they were wore out.
I know. The what if game is hard to play because I could counter and say how many more wins would Nebraska had without Scott Frost.
Yeah.
I think that's worth at least two.
It's worth
for sure.
The concept for certain. At
two
least
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So the what if game is really, really hard because nothing happens in a vacuum.
Nope.
No.
Wife and I were at this game for Illinois when we didn't know what Casey got hurt. She couldn't tell. He just hurt his hand. He didn't limp.
Well, when this was at the moment, because I was in the other end zone, and this happened like 80 yards away, and I just saw him sitting there, and I just kept my lens on him. And then when he looked down at his arm like that, I was, oh shit.
Yeah.
That's not what we needed.
That's kind of what we set up in our seats when Chuba ran on the field. It was like, oh no.
Oh God.
So, but yeah, to capture that just at that moment, I mean, poor Casey, he could not catch a break. And I threw this one in for also selfish reasons, not only because Ty got a sack against the Golden Flecktones, but because I actually met him in Arizona at the gun range out there, Rio Salado gun range. Went out there for Christmas, and I think it was the 26th or 27th we went shooting, and sure enough, we saw some Nebraska gear down the way, and so my son-in-law was like, you might want to go talk to him. One of the guys looks big enough to be a player, and I looked, and I'm like, son of a gun, that's Ty Robinson. So I walked over, and I was that guy. Hey,
Right.
dude, I have a podcast with my son. Can I take a picture with you so he's not pissed that I didn't? Still haven't convinced him to come on the show yet, but maybe one of these days. So yeah, that was pretty cool. I love that Boca behind this picture is just that blurry. I just love depth of field, and that's one of those that you
or the lack thereof.
Yeah, the framing of Ty, and then just nothing but a blur, because I'm sure that's what it feels like to them playing. It's basically all a blur, so you're kind of capturing the moment for them as well. So, and there you go. The trader himself.
Oh, that's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
He had a team high 8 solo tackles that day as a true freshman against that offense. So, and that running back too, to just great picture. It still hurts to look at.
Yeah, I'm one of the few people in the world probably that gets excited when I'm working and it snows.
Oh,
because
yeah.
There's a philosophy that goes around, and I kind of subscribe to it, is the worst weather makes the best pictures. Now it's horrible to work in. This was not just snow, but it was kind of wet. It was kind of snow. It was kind of rain. It was just wet and cold and miserable. It was no fun working this game last year in Michigan. But as long as it was snowing, I was excited.
Oh, sure.
Because
get some good photos.
That's the only way you get images like this. And without the snow, it's just another football picture.
Just adds another element to it, no pun intended.
Yeah. And then that game, we were there. Coldest game I think I can remember being at, as far as
it was so cold.
Yeah, Garrett was, we've talked about this photo a couple times. Garrett was kind of my barometer after every game, because we go over there and we stand by the tunnel as the players exit and try and make pictures that reflect the outcome of the game. And Garrett was always kind of my barometer, because I always felt like, all the way back to our yearbook cover shoot from last year that he was on, and I got to spend some time with him and get to know him a little bit. It just always felt like he was taking probably a little more on his shoulders than was due.
Right.
And I think it affected his play a little bit, because he was trying to do everything instead of just his job. But also, he's a local boy. He's one of the few people on the team that were playing not at Nebraska, but for Nebraska.
Yeah.
And at this time, none of us knew, and I think even he wasn't sure whether he was going to try to go pro or come back for another year. And so I was following him off the field, and then he just, as he walked by me, and I turned around and followed him with my camera, he just turned around, and you can just see on his face that in the moment he was thinking, this might be my last time. So he was deliberately, he took his time. This moment lasted, a good 10, 12, 15 seconds. He was taking its time to soak in the moment. And
kind of like Adrian did the year before at Wisconsin, as he was walking off the field there. Yeah.
Right. And then someone else pointed out the juxtaposition with Casey there, who, he's a great guy, but for lack of a better term, he was a mercenary last year, right? He's not from Nebraska. He wasn't playing for Nebraska. He was playing at Nebraska. And, he had a much different, and he had taken part in senior day, so he wasn't sure yet. But he had a much different reaction to that moment walking off the field. And that's why you recruit local guys.
Absolutely. Yep. That's why I'm pretty excited about this new coaching staff, who's basically almost got no ties here at all, other than one guy with the last name, right? Raiola.
Right.
But other than that, and they're hardcore going local. So I'm really excited. We're not there yet. We've got a few more photos I'd like to go through. these are more, these next bit, these are more nerding out on photography for me. There's a story, I'm sure, behind all of them, but I have to ask, how the filth did you get this camera angle?
Well, this is one of those things from, years of covering Creighton also, when I was, doing the Associated Press and Getty Images and stuff. Down at, what is it now, the CHI Health Center.
Okay.
The catwalks up top we have access to.
Oh, okay.
And so knowing that the position of one of the catwalks is literally right over the top of this hoop. And it was the first half, and that was the direction Nebraska was going. Or wait a minute, Creighton was going that way. But anyways, I knew that this is the only time this year I'm going to have this opportunity. And I literally spent an entire half of basketball with my lens, leaning over, with my lens hanging over the railing up there to get these photos, because it was the only opportunity we were going to have.
I assume you had the camera around your neck so that.
Well, I got it strapped around my arm and around my neck, and it's not. There's no risk of anything falling. But,
good, because I know I can imagine what that lens costs that you're getting that shot with. So, I've got little kit lenses, and I've bought like a 50 millimeter pancake and a 250 millimeter pancakes, and or primes, excuse me, not a pancake, but then a 16 millimeter prime, and those were hard to part with a few $100 for. I can't imagine what it costs to get a
little
hold
bit
of
more
that really can grab color and pictures
and
like that.
And you wouldn't want to be that guy who on live television drops, multi-$1,000 camera on a basketball player.
Well, not only that, I mean, we go so far as to take lens hoods off, like you take your basketball cap off. You just don't want to be that guy.
No.
Yep.
Right. And in amongst other photographers, the way I always put it is, I don't want to be the guy that takes this opportunity away from everybody else.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So
always shooting with the other guy in mind too. This picture, I'm guessing first base.
Yeah.
How the blazes did you get the angle? Where were you standing, sitting? Were you on the ground? How did you get it?
No, I was in the little photo well right by the dugout, and I don't know. I saw it through my through the lens, and one of the things I love about baseball is it's the only sport that's intentionally played on dirt.
Yes.
Barring all the AstroTurf that's coming up now, but it's the only sport that is intentionally played on dirt. And I like that. I just like the dirt and you start off with clean white uniforms, and by the end of the game, you're just covered in. I like that about baseball. So these kind of things catch my eye.
What lens would I assume you use more than one?
This would have been my 400, probably with the teleconverter on it.
Okay, teleconverter, meaning
it increased the magnification, so it took my 400, made it like a 600. And then on top of it, I probably cropped it more.
Okay.
In the computer.
Okay. 4K. I'm assuming you're taking that resolution at.
Well, we don't. That's a video term, but
okay.
Yeah, we still photographers talk in megapixels, but
megapixels. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm sure half of the art of photography these days is what you do with it in the computer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, getting the
post-production, literally
pushing the button is just, and getting it in the camera is just half. You've only done half of your job.
Yep.
Exactly. It's like doing this, getting the video out there live streamed. That's half the battle. The rest of the battle is actually post-producing at the end, separating it out into segments so that people can watch whatever part of the show they want, or setting up the audio show to where all of us sound at the same level, audio and all that good stuff, and then putting it out there on the podcast app. So yeah, I hear you. But I can't imagine. I've done a little photo editing when I've taken some pictures with the camera that I'm using for my webcam today, and it's a lot of doggone work, and I'm terrible at it. But eventually, I'd like to be able to do some stuff like that. It would be kind of cool. So let's see here. Next, how did you do this? Is this straight up shutter speed?
Shutter speed, yeah. I probably doing how I like to do it. I probably drop my shutter speed down to around a 15th of a second.
Okay.
And I probably shot 99.9% garbage for the time that I was experimenting with this panning process to get one or two images I was happy with.
It's really cool. I mean, it just kind of shows both speed and probably a little, you can see just enough definition in his arms to know that he's a
little frantic.
Kid. Really cool.
I always like to, one of the things that I shoot for is to, and there's debates in the photo community of you should do this, you should do that. You shouldn't do something because it makes the viewer uncomfortable. My counterpoint to that is it should be uncomfortable, because everything about what these athletes are doing is uncomfortable.
Sure.
Right? The environment's uncomfortable. The stress is uncomfortable. The opponent is uncomfortable. Getting hit or doing it's all uncomfortable. Why shouldn't the photo also be uncomfortable to look at? If it imparts a little bit of the feeling of what it might be like, then I consider it a win.
Yeah, it's an expression of art. It's really, I agree with that entirely. That was the first thing that I thought of when I saw this photo. Was it's capturing the gristle of the moment. Like it's because I mean, the football instinct it's an instinct. Everything else is a blur. And so their experience is not high definition. So why not have a photo that is also capturing the almost low resolution experience that they're having?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Well put. I think these next few are actually black and white.
No, my career started with black and white film. So if you pour through my Instagrams, you're going to see a lot of black and white.
I did. I went through your Instagram.
I love black
and white. A lot of cool stuff for sure. This one struck me just from the sake of these young fans are enjoying cheering. Do we want to let them in on the joke? Men's basketball is really hard to watch a lot of the time.
Not all the time. Maybe
I know.
Could be.
There's Keisei
just drained one from half court.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I just remember it's just another one of those things. I turned around, saw it, went, oh, and took a couple frames and then turned back to the game and pouring through it and post edit. Yeah, it's kind of cute. I kind of like it. There's nothing super special about it, but sometimes there's an intangible,
capturing a moment that they truly, truly enjoyed. And just it reflects that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So this again probably be your 400 on your lens and your
this was right over my shoulder. This is probably just like my 135.
Okay.
Because I was standing in the tunnel back there shooting what was happening in front of me with the 400. So from where I was standing, this probably would have been way too close.
Okay.
For the 400. Nostrils.
Yeah.
Next one is what first of all,
Jesus.
The gymnast having that kind of form and precision to make his body shape like that and look like that from that angle is just, and then the shot itself, getting it. I imagine you're in burst mode, probably shooting 30, 40.
Everything's in burst mode.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
20,
the
20
chalk
frames.
is just so cool.
Yeah. And that, this is the thing that I like about this one is this comes back to something that I harp on a lot: intention and watch your backgrounds. I
Okay.
intentionally saw this potential for this to line up where it would say Nebraska, and I just always liked the way the chalk comes off the hands in gymnastics, and I liked it in black and white.
So what kind of shutter speed would you be using to
Well,
freeze
that's
action
inside
like this?
Devaney, so I'm probably at 1250, maybe 1600th of a second max, maybe. Yeah, that probably sounds about right. But yeah, I was probably, if I remember correctly, I was sitting on the floor with my camera also on the floor, using the little flip screen on the back to line it up to get this angle where I could get the Nebraska in the background right where I wanted it.
Nice.
Incredible shot. Absolutely. And to finish things up, sentimental one for me, for sure.
Yeah, it was sentimental for me too.
Number one, let me just ask, how did you get such a nice tight shot? Where were you sitting or set up? You were obviously probably not standing.
Well, when
right
they did this ceremony, did they do this after the first quarter or after the third quarter?
It would have been halftime.
Did they do this one at halftime? Yes, they did.
Was this the ceremony for the locker room, or was it just
this was the whole brought Frank back?
Yeah, that was at halftime.
Yeah, that was because that was a longer thing at halftime. Well, I had seen that John had positioned himself front and center from the whole like normal ceremony. So there's no point in me going and sitting right next to him. We don't need two people bringing back the exact same pictures. Right. And I had an idea of how he was going to do what he was going to do from that position. So I decided to just stay on Frank with the 400.
Okay.
I probably left the teleconverter on it too. I don't remember, but I decided to just stay on Frank because I was looking for something just like this, and the rest of everybody else was irrelevant to me. And a little bit sentimental, a little bit in my own feels about how things went down with Frank. This moment, in my estimation, was long overdue. And I just kind of had a feeling that, Frank was going to feel a certain way about it. And so I was just waiting for that moment. And there was a couple of them there. I was debated between this one, and there was one moment where he just smiled really big, like Frank always did.
Right.
He just always had that smile that was bigger than life. And I was torn between the two, but I keep coming back to this one because I think when you stop and you just kind of really look into his eyes and the expression on his face, that he was in his feels about the moment.
No doubt about it. Absolutely.
Love it.
Speaking of Frank and seeing him on this, I got to see him. I can't remember I don't think I ever watched him coach a game as head coach. I don't think I was ever in Memorial Stadium to see him coach a game, but we did get to see him coach in the Independence Bowl when he was at Ohio. Scott and I were both there. They played ULM, University of Louisiana Monroe. It was the first year Nick Saban was the coach at Alabama, and Louisiana Monroe beat them. If you remember that, it was like 2007, I think it was. So we were there
a minute ago.
And yeah, just a couple days ago. Yeah. And we're sitting, and Frank's kind of coming around. He's talking. It was like a commercial break or whatever. He's talking to the refs. They're kind of close to the sidelines. There's a few Nebraska fans around us wearing Nebraska gear, and somebody shouts out, "We love you, Frank. We think you got screwed." And he turns to the crowd and he just gives a quick smile, and he looks right over in our area and he just gives a quick smile. And I was like, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool. That's just so Frank, just give it a quick smile. Nothing huge to put his own team off or anything, but it was just an acknowledgement.
An acknowledgement.
Cool.